What is it like to be a lady lawyer? On today's episode, we will wrap up season 3 and you'll find out.
This is the Lady Lawyer League podcast, Omaha's leading lady lawyers, empowering women to be legal savvy. Hosted by Susan Reff and Tracy Hightower-Henny of Hightower-Reff Law.
So, season 3, episode 10.
Yes.
And all three of us are here.
Yes.
All three partners of Hightower-Reff Law. Because this is our season finale.
I've never been on the podcast with all three of us.
But I was trying to think if there's been 3 people before.
I feel like we did have one time where the 3 of us were on, and it was the one where you interviewed me when I was like...
New.
Okay, but season 3 is different because we are on video.
Yeah.
Maybe for season 3, all 3 of us have not been on.
That's correct.
And we're on video today because Tosha has really pretty teeth.
I do. It's been No, I posted this on social media.
She's
and I'm
really proud,
So
so,
excited.
yeah.
I think I've probably shown my teeth to Susan more times than she would care to count. But I have been on this journey with Invisalign and all the things. And it's 6 years in, and I finally have straight teeth.
Yay!
So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's great. I mean, the topic
clap.
today is what's it like to be a lady lawyer, and that's part of it.
Yes, I have a nice smile, and it makes me feel confident for when I go into court and I whoop butt.
Well, okay, so interestingly though, you didn't always love to go to court.
I did not.
So is
Not-
part of
You love court?
I don't hate it anymore, so that's progress.
And is it now, like, because I think this is a thing, and I don't mean this as funny. Now that your teeth feel perfect to you, I think you're going to have even more confidence when you go to court.
Yes, like I want to smile, and when I smile now, I'm like, see my teeth?
That's kind of a weird smile.
It is. I need to work on it. I need to get a mirror.
Tooth model.
I could. Only on the top, though.
Because there's hand and feet model, right?
Yes.
There's models for every body part.
I don't think any of my body parts would be model-esque. What about you? What do you think? Not for me, for your body.
Oh.
Nose? Ears?
I don't know. No, my ears are very normal. I'm very thankful that like my ears don't stick way out. Like, because that's just something you can't. And they're not weird.
Oh, I'm sure there's a surgery for it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can, like pin them back.
Yeah, but that's like something expensive and painful.
Put a rubber band around your head and just...
Yes. That could be your thing.
You're wearing headbands recently.
I know, and I think I bruised behind my ear.
Oh, you have to get like a callus back there, and then it won't hurt.
A callus behind my... It like really is tender now.
Oh.
I don't know. It hurts.
I was going to say I like the headband.
I do like the headband too.
But if you had big ears, you could with your headband. And then it wouldn't hurt behind because you would...
I'm going to start wearing my headband on top of my ears.
And
all
all
until I
of
get the
this,
callus.
Right.
all of this is what it's like to be a lady lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. Thinking
Yeah.
about what
Like
you're going to wear.
your hair, your teeth, what you look like is so much a part of it.
So in this topic, we were just talking about, and we realized that it was Missouri. I thought it was either Ohio or Oklahoma, but they're also all the same. That it in the
Anywhere in the Midwest.
in the state senator's office that they
yes.
passed a rule that women have to have a second layer, and then they can't have bare arms.
Correct. No.
So that
bearing arms.
means like you need to wear a cardigan or a jacket.
Not to be confused with bearing arms. The second.
You also, I don't think, can bear arms in the.
Well, you can in Nebraska.
Well, that's true.
So to go back to, can Tosha wear what she's wearing?
Yes.
If she was a
Yes.
state senator in Missouri?
Yes.
Could
But I
I?
don't think you can because your arms are covered, but you don't have a second layer.
I only have one layer.
That's right. Hold on. My elbow patch.
Well, I do have a camisole on, but it doesn't cover my arms.
And my shirt is short
that
sleeve.
might be okay though.
My shirt is short sleeve, so I don't have 2 layers on my forearm. Is that a thing?
So can you wear short sleeves?
I don't know what you
have
can
to
wear. I
wear-
think you can't wear anything.
all these semantics.
You just walk in with your underwear on, apparently.
Literally, dress codes are designed to keep women in certain
Check.
positions, you know, like
Yeah.
lower status, you know, like stressing you out. Like, what should I wear to work every day?
Right.
When like a business suit, jacket over anything should be enough, or a sweater or a blouse, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, you shouldn't have to be like, you know what would be really cool? If they got these like armbands in Defiance. So they were just wearing like a blouse with like an armband.
Well, okay, so
and be
what
like,
if you
aha,
have-
I'm complying.
What if you have a sleeveless dress on, not spaghetti strap, sleeveless dress, and then it's like the 90s warm-up armband and just a little bit of your elbow show.
And it was a double layer armband?
Yeah,
Like
double layer.
Cinderella gloves.
Yeah.
Opera gloves.
Yes. Like
And then the 90s warm-up armband over the top. So you have a double layer, your arms are covered.
We should all show up to the legislature
Yeah.
wearing that.
So, I mean, this also, again, this is somewhat what it's like to be a lady lawyer.
I remember, this was several years ago, but I went to a women's group thing where I was on the panel at the University of Nebraska Law School. And one of the questions that one of the audience members asked about was courtroom attire.
Was it a man or a woman that asked the question?
It was a woman. There were only women at this event. It was a woman. It might have been put on by the Women's Law Caucus. I can't remember. But one of the things that I've always kind of abided by, or maybe that's not the right word.
Abided.
Abided.
I don't. What's the past tense of abide?
I don't abide.
Did abide by in the past.
Correct. The thing I always do. And especially as a person who the courtroom is not my favorite place to be, I've always felt like I'm going to dress in a way that I am professional but also comfortable, because I don't want to have to be worrying about what I'm wearing, because I need to be worrying about who my client is and what they need.
And you also don't want anything to be a distraction for, you know, anything else. But that also doesn't mean that, like, oh my gosh, if a little bit of cleavage is showing, that's distracting other people and that's your problem. But there is a, you know, as lawyers, there is a professional decorum. And there's actual court rules in our local courts about what specifically should be worn.
You're not supposed to have bare arms in court in Nebraska.
But it doesn't have to be a double layer.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, like, no tank tops as an attorney.
Right. But what's interesting is that I know there's been articles and studies that have come out about the difference between male attorneys versus female attorneys when you're talking about, for example, presenting in front of a jury. I know there was a bunch of stuff that came out after the O.J. Simpson trial, because they talked about the prosecutor, and for the life of me, I can't think of her
Marcia
name.
Clark.
Thank you. But there was so much that came out about her during that trial and what people thought about her hair. And then I think at one point during the trial, she got it cut. And so then it was like this whole thing.
Yeah.
But there was nothing really ever said about the male attorneys. That's not something that people look at.
Well, and that was one of the first televised trials, not only about, you know, and that's what started like the whole, you know, courtroom drama, TV thing, and all of that. She was the only woman in the courtroom, really, that had a position of power, because all the lawyers, each side had like 6 lawyers, right? And she was the only woman.
Correct.
So,
Did you all watch it?
yes,
Like, you remember growing up watching it?
Yes.
growing up, I was an adult.
I was in 3rd grade.
I was, I think, in 5th or 6th grade.
I was in...
Ish.
Yeah.
Maybe. I just remember that we had this little tiny 9-inch TV in our kitchen, and before school, you had to sit really close to it.
Was it black and white?
No, it was barely color.
Barely colored.
Yeah, you know.
Pastel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember...
A tube TV.
It was a tube TV.
Of course.
You had to put it in the corner, so like
Yes.
the whole
Yeah.
back part was
Yes.
out of the
It
corner.
weighed 1,000,000 pounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember being in 3rd grade, and my 3rd grade teacher, when they announced the verdict, I remember her coming out the hallway and saying, "Not guilty."
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, the other thing that's really interesting about dress and being a woman lawyer in the courtroom, I remember my parents had some construction litigation case, and I was in college or law school, so I was like out of town, and so I wasn't involved at all. Otherwise, I would have been going every day. And there was a jury; it was a civil case. And I remember my parents' lawyer, who was a woman, talked to them a lot about things like a woman lawyer, if she's not married, should still wear a wedding ring, because they don't want the jury to wonder, why aren't you married? And that's never said to a man. And then, like, whether you should wear a skirt or not, because if you wear pants, then some jurors are like, why aren't you wearing a skirt? And those types of things. And I hear that from like our prosecutor friends and public defenders too, that those are the types of things that jurors think about as a lawyer or as a woman lawyer that they don't wonder about as a male lawyer. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, and men in general, to dress professionally, have a uniform. And it's a suit and a button down and a tie.
A tie.
and they really only have to have maybe one pair of dress shoes. So it's also a lot more expensive for women to dress professionally. Because can you imagine if you were, let's say you wore a suit to work every day because you had to be in court every single day. And if you wore the same suit more than once in a row, like men do that all the time and no one notices.
Or black suit on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the brown suit or navy blue probably on Tuesday, Thursday, and then no one knows. Yeah. It's a different tie every day.
Yeah. And so that's like another thing for women to build up their professional wardrobe can get really expensive. And men are also built like most men are built like a box. So most things fit them off the rack. Whereas we are all different shapes. All of us have had to have clothing like tailored, or we just have to like, live with it if it doesn't fit you right. And so
my pants are just long and then I step on them.
Yeah, like pants being too long, pants being too short, jackets being too tight or too loose or whatever, or the buttons in the wrong spot. Like all of that is a whole different thing that I don't think men have to even think about.
Have you ever worn a tie, like a suit and tie?
I did wear a tie one time, but it's not totally my thing, but I like it. I like the look.
Halloween.
Like as court attire, did you?
Right. No.
Oh.
Yeah. I think I was probably sometime when I was wearing a suit, but I also really prefer wearing a scarf. I just haven't worn them a lot lately because now I get hot a lot.
I always think if someone's wearing a scarf that there's a hickey under there.
Oh. But sometimes I wear them loose.
So every time, okay. Yeah, but if it still is like trying to cover, or turtlenecks, I don't know. I think that came from junior high.
I distinctly remember wearing one of those, I think they're called bolo ties with like the turquoise jewel and you like cinch them up. I totally had one
90s.
of those.
Is that like a country western?
Yeah.
Did you wear it with your denim shirt?
Probably.
With pearl snaps?
I had a shirt. Oh, this is my horrible third grade picture that I've hidden from everyone in my life. My husband's still
now we have to see it.
Nope. Never going to show it.
Call Angie. Hey, Angie.
My hair is a mullet, and my mom permed it and then backcombed it. And then she had me in this purple, like, velvety suede shirt, but it was too big, so it was buttoned down, and then it was, like, up here like this. So the shoulders were, like, back here. It's a horrible picture. And then the next day I wore my denim jeans, acid wash with my bolo tie.
And now you have your new teeth.
Right.
I mean, look where you've come.
Right.
So speaking of all of this, these are some of the struggles as female lawyers. So what are the advantages of being a female lawyer?
Everything.
Right.
But it's hard to articulate,
I know,
though, right?
Well, and
I've never been a male lawyer, so I don't know.
Yeah.
There is that. I mean, I know we want to try to talk about the positives, but one of the other things that I was kind of thinking
But going
about,
back to the negative.
Right. Well, but I think it could be maybe construed both ways, like when you go to an interview and they're like, what's your biggest weakness? And you're like, oh, I work too hard. Right.
Don't ever say that in an interview.
Right. But like, I think sometimes women are viewed, it's very hard to walk the line when you're in court or even in some type of a negotiation where if you're too hard line, then you're a bitch, or if you care about kind of the fluffy stuff, then you're too emotional. Whereas men, it's like if they take a hard line, then they're strong and they're confident.
Right.
Like those lines are hard. But I think to the side of talking about an advantage, I think women are more in tune as a gender with the emotional side of things that I think sometimes can be overlooked by our male counterparts. And so I think that can sometimes be advantageous in a case.
But I think oftentimes in the work that we do, family law, estate planning, all those sort of like caretaker lawyer roles, oftentimes men and women seek out a female attorney because they think we're better listeners and caretakers, and I think we are.
Right.
But one of the questions that we get often asked is sort of like, how many women lawyers are there in the profession? And something that I hear a lot recently is in law school classes, there's more than 50% women in law school classes. But then in the legal career, most women leave the legal career for taking care of families. And so I think one of the things that in a professional setting with the grind that there is that some women struggle, with being mothers and taking care of children as opposed to staying in the profession like men do and can do and all of that, even though it's possible, I think, for women to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can say, so I've been an attorney for over 20 years, and I can say many of the women that were in my ilk that I remember,
What is ilk? Do you know what ilk is?
I don't know. I'm probably using the wrong word. My little pod back in law school. Is that right?
Sure.
I think
better than
is more
ilk.
like your stature.
Okay.
Like a woman that is of equal stature to you as your ilk.
So I meant like my age.
Like
Let's just say that.
At the time you graduated.
Yeah. So many of them, probably the majority of like the 10 or so females that I hung around with, I think the majority of them are not practicing law. And some actually never did. Like they graduated law school and they did not practice law. Now, a lot of them are working, but they're not working as attorneys. They use their law degree to get a different job. Mm-hmm. And I can't speak for if that degree helped them get that job, but a lot of them are working like in compliance somewhere or insurance or something like that. But there's a lot of women that, they had families and stayed home, and that's a choice. It's not to say they had to do that, but I do think being a parent and being an attorney creates a whole set of other challenges on top of being a female.
So I always caution people that just because females in law school, the numbers are up, doesn't mean that in the legal career, the numbers are also, comparison.
Right.
Because we are still very much a male-dominated industry.
In Nebraska, of our district court judges, so that's where like felonies are heard, motor vehicle accident
A felony is like a murder.
Or, a very serious crime. Divorces, of those, only in Nebraska, only 16% of our bench is female. And nationwide, it's 22% at that level. So we're below the national standards in Nebraska. So I haven't heard anything recently about the standards of practicing attorneys, but I think if you looked at the law school demographics, it is more than 50% are female usually. Mm-hmm. So we have those issues too. Like, not only being a female lawyer, but like getting into the profession and staying in the profession.
I think another thing too is like a struggle with being a female attorney is when you're a young female attorney.
Like us.
Right.
Although she looks at me and like raises an eyebrow.
Not you.
Right.
But I think, like 15 years ago when I first started, I literally didn't really totally know what I was doing, right? I was always willing to like work my butt off and like find the answer and do the best I could. But I also looked very young, and, you age quickly in a career like this, but
physically or
yeah, but like
maybe, what do you mean age quickly? Wait.
I think you get more wrinkles quicker and, like gray hair quicker. I don't know. Yeah. All right. You know what I mean? But I think
kind of like being the president, right? It's supposed to
yes,
age you.
Yeah.
Those pictures, so they do the beginning of their term and the end of their term.
Yeah.
They should do that for a lawyer. No, they shouldn't. You got new teeth, though.
I know.
Yeah, so you're doing
but I stopped coloring my hair, so I don't know where that leaves us. But.
Yeah.
So I recall, and something that we talk about with our younger associates in our office too, is like, when you have a client say to you, "You're so young, do you know what you're doing?" Like, good ways to say like, "Well, I just went to law school, have you?" You can sort of say it in a sort of snarky but like serious way. Like,
yeah,
do you want me to be your lawyer or not? I get to represent you in court. You don't get to represent anyone else in court.
And earlier today, Tosha was sharing with us some antics of an older attorney that was very, very, very bad. And it's like, maybe the person who's right out of law school actually knows more than the person who's been practicing for 50 years because they don't keep up on their stuff either.
Oh, they get lazy.
Yeah.
And then
the way it's always been.
And then they think I can just do this fly by the seat of my pants. I can do this in my sleep. And it's like, well, if you've been sleeping long enough that the case law changed.
Yeah.
Right. In my realm, so I'm mostly in county court doing probate cases, things like guardianships or estate cases. And in the last, 10 to 15 years, which is quick by legal standards in some cases, there's been a lot of rule changes and a lot of different, different forms you have to use, different ways that things have to be done. And, reading between the lines, a lot more forms, a lot more steps. And a lot of the older attorneys who have been doing this type of law for, maybe 2 decades are saying, well, I'm not going to do it that way. I've always done it this way.
Yeah.
And so then you're having twice as many hearings to do it because they're refusing to do it the correct way. And so, I think there's a lot of advantages to having somebody who is, quote unquote, younger or early on in their career because they are more in tune with what's happening now.
And maybe more flexible because they're like, okay, these rules change. That's how the practice of law goes.
Right.
Like, roll with it. Yeah.
Okay, before we go to the wild and weird questions from our crazy producers, what are you most proud of in your career?
For me, so in my line of work, I get to work a lot with people who may or may not be marginalized or underserved communities, things like adult disabled people. I know the mental health system in our country is, in my opinion, sorely lacking.
Broken.
Right.
Completely.
So I get to help families sometimes at their most vulnerable, which I think is true for a lot of areas of practice. But the adult disabled cases are really near and dear to my heart. And also adoption cases. I think I've talked about on here before that I was adopted by my stepfather. And so that whole I remember being adopted. And so coming full circle, being able to help families do that has been really important work for me. So.
What about you, Susan?
Geez, Tosha. So what's the question? Because I got tied up in that.
What are you most proud of in your career?
What am I most proud of in my career? This, like having.
That was my answer.
Well, maybe.
Oh, me too.
Maybe you can give a little different context. So, like, this isn't what I set out to do. And never in a million years thought that this is where I would end up because, I started my life as a criminal defense attorney and assumed I would always be in that realm and be in court a lot. And when we started the firm and we started hiring more attorneys and started growing our firm, doing that mentor role, that I would never have had the opportunity to do that on the scale that I've had to do it if it wasn't for our firm. And, I think for me, that brings me the biggest joy because I set out to be an attorney and be a different type of attorney from day one. I never wanted to be, the cookie cutter attorney. And that's why I didn't go ever work at a law firm and why I didn't ever even interview and why I knew courtroom would leave me the flexibility to do that. And so getting to mentor other younger attorneys, usually women, to help them be what they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I literally, when I saw this question, I was going to say this moment right now, just being in the seat, not specifically the podcast, but like where we're at a point where, we're knowledgeable about this information, we're giving this information, sharing what it's like to be a lady lawyer to random people that are listening to our podcast. And I think that's, we've come so far. And just like creating a business that has been successful for 10 years. I mean, for a long time, there was days where I'd be like, Susan's going to quit on me today. And then at some point I stopped thinking that because I was like, well, I don't know. She keeps signing leases and bank accounts with me. So,
shoot.
But I think it is, just this moment right here and everything that it speaks for. So when we talk about season 3 of the podcast and wrapping up our season finale, I think that was a great way to sort of think back.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Wild, crazy questions on Google of what it's like to be a lady lawyer.
Compiled by our team of top-notch producers and also weird producers.
Very weird producers.
Okay, I'm going to scooch over a little bit.
Are most men afraid to date female lawyers?
Yes.
My answer is I would be.
Okay, were you single? No, Tosha dated her current husband in law school, right?
We started dating before I applied to law school, and then I applied and got in.
I met my husband right after taking the bar exam, so I wasn't a lawyer yet.
Haha, I'm the expert in this area. Okay, so.
But it's also been a long time.
Since I dated someone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I graduated from law school and was single and dating, and I would often get, when I would meet guys out socially, they would be like, "Oh, you're a lawyer," and then they'd like slowly like go away from me. Like clearly they didn't want to talk. So I just started to tell people that I worked at the courthouse. Like I thought, if my profession scares somebody away from like learning more about me, that's crap. But
So what'd you tell your husband the first time that you worked in the courthouse?
No, I actually told him I was an attorney, and he started laughing. So, because then he asked,
like, why?
Maybe he didn't think you were serious.
No, the rest of the context is he asked me if I knew who a certain judge was. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know who that judge is. And he said he was my divorce judge. So then we had something to talk about. So that was kind of fun.
So the answer is yes.
I mean, I think the underlying thing is female attorneys are viewed as intimidating.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Okay.
My husband plays that card all the time. My wife's a lawyer, so you better do what I say.
Yes, I like that angle.
Is it safe for a woman to become a criminal lawyer? The only thing I'll say to this, and Susan can speak more, is at one point I was doing some criminal defense work in the Innocence Project world where I had to go to the prison and meet with clients. And as a young lawyer, I would always feel, nervous to go into prison and into an attorney room, for this person I've never met. And someone told me, why would they ever hurt you? You're the person helping them. And
Right.
It's probably you that told me that.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was like, oh yeah, duh. They're not going to hurt me. I'm their lawyer.
I would say being in a jail is probably safer than walking down the street,
Right.
too. But, one of the things, so when I was a public defender, so you only do criminal defense, they had a thing at the beginning where they were like, and granted, this was right at the cusp of cell phones, so they were like, make sure you have an unlisted number. They had a form that you could fill out to make sure if you owned a home that if anyone ever put your name into the online system that's public record, they couldn't find your house. But that is a special form that the Register of Deeds has to approve. And that was before social media too. So most of my friends that only do criminal defense who are attorneys don't use their real name or their full name on social media just for that reason. But honestly, I know what happens. I just don't have any firsthand experience with ever having a client be violent towards me or towards anyone I worked with, but I know what happens. But I think that person's probably going to be violent towards their attorney either way.
Yeah.
Male or female. I don't know if it's more. So more towards females.
Well, and I think to this question too, I think that there is some risk no matter what type of case you're handling.
Right.
In the sense that a lot of times when you're meeting with a lawyer, it's in a tough time. People are maybe at their worst. I've had cases where I have, for example, removed somebody from a family because I felt like they weren't taking care of them, and the family was very upset with me, and they came to our office and they yelled, and so
And we yelled back.
right, we did yell back.
And then we called 911.
right. But even our divorce cases, there's definitely situations, and so we have to be aware, of our surroundings and what we're doing and that sort of thing. I have had one case where we had the police come to the courtroom. So, but...
Oh, I've had the red button pushed often in hearings.
Luckily, there's a lot of police at the courthouse.
Right.
And there is a red button in the courtroom.
Yes.
FYI.
The judge gets the red button.
And they'll escort you to your car and stuff too,
Yeah.
if you want them to.
Yeah.
Stuff. So, but I don't think that is enough to detract any of us from still doing the good work that we're doing.
You know what? I scuba dive with sharks. Nothing much is going to detract me in this career. Next. When lawyers date each other, do they argue a lot? I presume so. But there's not many lawyers that date each other, I don't think.
We know a lot of lawyer couples, though.
Yes, but I get this question. Do you guys get this question a lot? Is your husband a lawyer too?
Yes.
And I don't
Yes.
know. I think that's somewhat of a gender.
By non-lawyers. It's
Yes.
not usually by lawyers.
And I don't
think
know.
anyone's ever asked me that.
Oh, people ask me that
Yes,
all the time. And my answer always is if he was, we would be divorced. Because it truly is like there are arguments that we have, and he's like, are you deposing me right now? Are you interrogating me right now? And I think if really both of us were doing that, we would never get anywhere communication style.
So the answer that you have to give him is yes?
Typically, yes. Is that a yes or a no?
Right.
I need you to let me finish the question before you answer.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know the answer. What do you call a female lawyer?
Whatever they want to be
A
called.
lawyer.
So is it lawyer or attorney?
Oh.
Oh,
But
wow.
aren't men attorneys also?
I know, but
Or is it
in
counselor
general,
at law?
gender specific, gender neutral, lawyer or attorney, what do you use?
I use both the word lawyer and attorney very interchangeably.
Same. And it
And
doesn't-
sometimes in writing, it depends if I want to say "an" before.
And it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman.
Right. The only funny answer I have to this is potentially we call a female lawyer a lawyer. You know,
A lady lawyer.
an A on the end. Okay. Is an American lawyer most like a solicitor or barrister in the United Kingdom?
I would say both,
What?
right?
A solicitor or a barrister?
Are
they're
those
different.
I don't even know what the difference between those two are.
Well, a solicitor, I think, is the person who actually goes to court, and the barrister is like the person who does the paperwork, and that's why I feel like they're the same.
Who wears the wigs?
The solicitors, I think.
Well, who's
I
the
don't know.
judge? Don't the judges wear the wigs?
They all have
The
to
lawyers wear the wigs too.
Even
What?
if you're female, you have to wear the wig with the gray,
And you have to have a second layer?
and you have to have a robe on.
You have to wear the
Oh,
robe.
They
so
all
maybe
wear
that's what they were
robes.
trying to get to in Missouri.
wear a robe.
But everybody does, not just women. I think in Canada they wear the robes too, but they don't wear anything on their head.
Correct.
So the women in Missouri should show up with the robe and the wigs and be like, is this okay now?
But they're not lawyers.
but have them be
Right?
I
pink.
know, but I just think it'd be
I
funny.
think they should wear their bikinis.
With the
not enough
with the,
layers,
Wait, no,
Susan.
with the swim
Sleeves.
cover up that's like the see-through.
Yeah.
All right. Why is law seen as the most morally bankrupt profession?
Says who? Oh.
Who said? Yeah. More.
Well, okay. So I look
TV,
at this as,
TV and movies make it
is it bankrupt of money or bankrupt of morals?
bankrupt of morals, I think is the question.
I don't know. I think it's the movies.
Well, and nobody wants to like gossip about the morally bankrupt plumber or the morally bankrupt tree trimmer. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not
not-
as fun.
not fun.
Like Joe, he's embezzling money from his tree trimming business, and everyone's like, yawn. But if it's a lawyer, right? I don't know.
Yeah. True.
I
think lawyers are held to this like really super high standard that just really doesn't exist.
We are.
I think that there are bad apples in the legal profession, but I think there are bad apples in every
In tree trimming and plumbing.
right, in
Yeah.
every
Yes.
profession. And I think on some level, maybe our jobs are more public, and so that's why people are we pseudo celebrities? Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of lawyers become politicians
Right.
and like
Exactly.
lobbyists and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, season 3, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on the Lady Lawyer League podcast. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Lawyer League podcast, and be sure to like and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. If you would like to learn more about our firm, Hightower-Reff Law, please visit our website at hrlawomaha.com.
We'll see you next week.